Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going all the way back. Before the Netflix documentary, before Spare, before Montecito, before the Oprah couch, before any of it, to talk about the man Prince Harry used to be. Because here's the thing that nobody seems to want to say out loud anymore. Harry was genuinely, undeniably, one of the most beloved young royals in modern British history. Not because of who he married, not because of a PR team or a carefully managed image rollout, but because of who he actually was as a person. And if you have forgotten that version of Harry, or if you are too young to remember him, then buckle up because this story is going to surprise you. Let us start at the very beginning, because you cannot understand who Harry was before Meghan without understanding where Harry came from. He was born on the 15th of September 1984, the second son of Charles and Diana. From the moment he arrived, the world adored him. He had that mop of red hair, that cheeky grin, those blue eyes that could light up an entire room from 30 feet away. But behind the fairy tale image of a little prince living in a palace, Harry's childhood was anything but straightforward. His parents' marriage was one of the most publicly painful royal disasters in modern history. The arguments, the affairs, the press feeding frenzy, all of it playing out while two little boys were trying to grow up inside that storm. Diana tried her absolute best to give her sons some version of a normal life, taking them to theme parks, to McDonald's, to homeless shelters so they could understand that the world was much bigger and much harder than the palace walls suggested. She was, by all accounts, a fiercely loving and emotionally present mother. And then, on the 31st of August 1997, when Harry was just 12 years old, she was gone. You have to sit with that for a moment. 12 years old, a boy who had already grown up watching his family fracture in public, who had already learned that the press were not your friends, who had already felt the strange alienation of being royal in a world that was not royal. And then the one person who made all of that bearable, the one person who hugged him back like she meant it, was ripped away in a Paris tunnel with the whole world watching. Harry has spoken about how he barely cried after Diana's death. He said the first time he really cried was at her funeral on the island at Althorpe, and after that, almost nothing. Just a 12-year-old boy walking behind his mother's coffin in front of billions of television viewers around the world, holding it together because that is what you do when you are a royal, when the whole world is watching, when grief is not allowed to be ugly or inconvenient or real. That repressed grief would haunt him for decades, but in those early years, it also produced something remarkable. It produced a young man who was desperately, almost defiantly alive. Because that is the Harry the world fell in love with in the years after Diana died. The Harry who refused to be buttoned up, who refused to be stiff and formal and emotionally inaccessible like so much of the institution he had been born into. Harry was the fun one. He was the one who would show up to events and actually seem happy to be there, who would crouch down to talk to children at his level, who would crack a joke at entirely the wrong moment and absolutely not care. He was charming in that completely unforced way that cannot be manufactured, the kind of charm that makes you feel like you are the most interesting person in the room, even though you both know perfectly well who is the prince. He had a wildness to him too, a quality that the tabloids loved to exploit and that his family probably found quietly terrifying. But that wildness was also at its core an extraordinary aliveness. Harry felt things, he showed it. In a family where emotional expression was practically a constitutional violation, that made him genuinely extraordinary. Now, of course, the tabloids did not always frame it that way. They had a field day with young Harry. There was the Nazi costume incident at a fancy dress party in 2005, which was genuinely indefensible and which Harry himself has acknowledged as one of his most serious mistakes. There were the stories about drinking and the parties and the trips to Vegas. The press built an entire narrative around him as the royal wild child, the spare heir who was always just barely under control. And some of it was true. Harry has never pretended otherwise. He was a young man trying to process extraordinary grief and extraordinary privilege and extraordinary public pressure all at the same time, without a therapist, without a roadmap, and with the paparazzi camped outside every door. The miracle is not that he stumbled. The miracle is that underneath all of that, the core of him remained so fundamentally decent. Because alongside every headline about Harry's latest escapade, there was always another story. The story of Harry in Lesotho, sitting on the floor with orphaned children and holding them with a tenderness that made grown adults cry watching it on their television screens. He had gone to Africa for the first time shortly after his mother died, and something about that continent unlocked something in him. He told Town & Country magazine that Africa was where he felt more like himself than anywhere else on Earth, that he had this intense sense of complete relaxation and normality there that he could not find anywhere else. He co-founded a charity called Sentabale, which means forget-me-not, with his friend Prince Siso of Lesotho to help children affected by poverty and HIV/AIDS. This was not a charity Harry lent his name to for the photo opportunity. He was there, on the ground, year after year, building something real in honor of the mother who had shown him that a royal's most important job was to show up for the forgotten. And then there was the military. If you want to understand who Harry really was before Meghan, you have to understand what the army meant to him. In 2005, he entered the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, and from the moment he walked through those gates, something shifted in him. He was not Prince Harry there, he was Officer Cadet Wales, and then eventually Captain Wales, and he loved it with an intensity that went far beyond duty. He has talked about how the military gave him the one thing that his royal life could not, a place where he was judged entirely on merit, where rank was earned, not inherited, where the person standing next to you did not care about your bloodline, only about whether you could do the job. In the army, Harry found belonging, he found brotherhood, he found a version of himself that was capable and serious and useful in ways the palace had never quite allowed him to be. He served for a full decade, 10 years in the British Army, and he did not do it from behind a desk. He was deployed to Afghanistan not once, but twice. His first deployment in 2007 was supposed to be secret. The military knew his presence in a combat zone made him a target and made everyone around him a target too. When the press leaked it in February 2008, he had to be immediately withdrawn for the safety of his fellow soldiers. He was furious. He had spent months finally doing the thing he had trained for, finally proving that he was not just a decoration pinned to the British Army's chest, and it was taken away from him because of the very thing he spent his whole life trying to escape, the fact of being who he was. But he went back. He trained as an Apache helicopter pilot, which is not a qualification you receive because your grandmother is the queen. That is an extraordinarily demanding technical achievement, and Harry earned it. His second tour in 2012 and 2013 saw him flying combat missions over Helmand Province. He participated in operations that were genuinely dangerous. He was not protected. He was not kept at the back. He was Captain Wales. And he said something at the end of that tour that tells you everything you need to know about what the military gave him. He said, "You can only fit a certain number of people in a helicopter, therefore no one can follow us." By no one, he meant the press. He meant the cameras and the constant, exhausting, relentless visibility of being royal. The helicopter was the one place in Harry's entire existence where nobody was watching, where he was just a pilot doing a job, and that meant more to him than almost anything. When he came back from Afghanistan for the last time and eventually ended his military career in 2015, something shifted again. He had to choose between the army and full-time royal duties because the Queen needed him, and that crossroads was genuinely painful for him. But what he built from that transition point is honestly one of the most impressive things any senior royal has ever done. He created the Invictus Games. If you do not know what the Invictus Games are, they are a Paralympic-style international sporting competition for wounded, injured, and sick armed forces personnel and veterans. Harry got the idea after visiting the Warrior Games in the United States, run by the American military for their own wounded veterans. He came home, rallied support, rallied sponsors, rallied nations, and in 2014, the inaugural Invictus Games were held in London. Thousands of competitors, dozens of countries, a platform that told injured servicemen and women, "You are not forgotten, you are not discarded, your sacrifice is seen." He built that from scratch.
And it was not a vanity project. The Invictus Games are still running. They are still changing lives. That is Harry's legacy from that era, and it is a significant one. There is one more dimension to the pre-Meghan Harry that people tend to forget, and it is perhaps the most important. He was funny. Genuinely, disarmingly, completely funny. There is a sketch from 2016 where he sat with his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, and the Obamas for a Commonwealth video, and Harry's comedic timing in that clip is honestly better than most professional comedians. He filmed a cameo with his brother William on the set of Star Wars at Pinewood Studios, where the two of them had an actual lightsaber duel. Grown men, princes of the realm, absolutely losing themselves in the joy of it. He appeared in a short film at the 2015 Rugby World Cup opening ceremony set in 1823, playing a gardener who watches someone run with a ball and deadpans, "That'll never take off." He trekked 17 miles for charity, and when a reporter stopped him around mile 10 to ask when he planned to settle down, he gave the politest, most measured, most perfectly royal non-answer in human history. The man had timing. He had self-awareness. He could laugh at himself in a way that very few people born into that amount of institutional gravity ever manage. He was also, at his core, someone who desperately wanted to be loved for who he was rather than what he was. His long relationship with Chelsea Davy, a Zimbabwean-born businesswoman he dated on and off from 2004 to 2011, was marked by genuine affection and genuine difficulty. She found the press intrusion into her life nearly unbearable, and ultimately that pressure was too much. After that, he had a relationship with actress Cressida Bonas, which also ended, and by all accounts, Harry was someone who wore his heart on the outside of his chest in a way that the institution he lived inside was utterly unprepared for. He told ABC News in 2016, just months before he met Meghan, that he could not wait to have children, that he had a kid inside of him and wanted to keep it, that he adored children and everything they brought to the party because they just said what they thought. He said people told him he was very good at giving hugs, and he believed it immediately because you can see it. The same instinct Diana had, the same quality of making another person feel seen and held. And
That is who Harry was, a man shaped by extraordinary loss, forged by military service, driven by a genuine and almost stubborn desire to be useful, to be real, to be seen as a person rather than a title. A man who was beloved, genuinely, warmly, widely beloved. Not because the machine told people to love him, but because when you watched him, something in you recognized something human. He was the royal who felt like he might actually understand what your life was like, not because he lived it, but because he paid attention. Because Diana had taught him to pay attention. Because the army had taught him that the person beside you matters more than the rank on your shoulder. Because Africa had taught him that the world was vast and beautiful, and that grief was survivable if you let yourself feel it. And then July 2016 arrived, and he met a woman on a blind date set up by a mutual friend, and everything, absolutely everything, began to change. Whether you think that change was liberation or destruction probably depends on where you were sitting to begin with. But before you decide, before you make up your mind about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and their documentaries and their memoirs and their decisions, it is worth spending a moment with the man who existed before all of that. The soldier, the son, the humanitarian, the man who flew Apache helicopters over Helmand and held orphan children in Lesotho and made the Queen laugh on camera, and once looked at an empty helicopter with pure, uncomplicated relief, because in there, just for a moment, nobody was watching. That Harry existed. He was real. And the question of what happened to him and why is one that people are still arguing about today. If you found this interesting, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video from this channel. Drop in the comments below. Do you miss the old Harry, or do you think the man we see today is actually the truest version of himself? I want to know what you think. See you in the next one.